Hi, I'm Reynolds Foster, and today we're going to do some fabrication with the Sigafoos Series II system. So here we've got our tracing of our horse's foot. We're going to build the shoe around that tracing. We've already got a line drop down the center of the shoe. We're going to cut these tracings out, put them on the plate. We've got our ruler here with dots marked where the middle of our tread pattern on the bottom of this plate is. We'll drop that tracing back down on the plate and trace that line. So here we're going to cut our shoe blank out of our plate. It's easier if you put the plate in a stand-up gooseneck vise like this, so it doesn't shake on you too much. You want to use a jigsaw and try to get as close to the line as you can without going over. The more you cut away now, the less you have to grind off. So now we move over to the grinder. We're going to grind down to our lines. Start with the outside edge of the plate, and once you've got that in a good spot, you can grind your expansion away up to where your cuff is going to go. You do that at kind of like a 45-degree angle. You just want to try to grind off all that excess. That way, if a horse steps on those expansions, their foot's more likely to slide off. So now we're going to go back to the vise, and we're going to trim away some of that excess urethane where we're going to roll the toe and the heel and the edges of the shoe. We don't want to grind this off, so it'll take too long. It'll clog the belt up. We're going to go back over to the grinder, and we're going to refine all of our toe roll, heel roll, the roll on the edges. This is all going to depend heavily on what you're trying to do with the shoe, where you want your rolls to be, where you want your mechanics to be. Now we're back over at the bench, and we're going to work on attaching our cuff to our plate. First thing you want to do is mark the middle of the cuff so that you put it back on the midline of the plate. We're also going to walk the cuff around and mark about how long we need the cuff so we can cut off the excess. You see I'm doing there. Then we're just going to trim that excess off with another hoof knife. It's usually easier if you cut the urethane with the hoof knife and then come back with your shears and trim the cuff away. And here we're trimming off the excess plastic so that I can trace the cuff line on where the cuff is supposed to go onto the plate. If you can't grind those expansions away so that everything meets up nice, this is a way to make sure you can put your cuff down where it needs to be. The last thing you want to do is clean off any chips that got under the plastic while you were grinding. Want both those surfaces to be clean as possible. We're going to put the cuff in a little jig that we've made that holds the cuff while protecting the fabric from the heat of the oven. So once the top of your plate and the bottom of your cuff are around 150 degrees, take them out. Line up your mark at the toe and start attaching your cuff, just following your cuff line, toe to heel. Another thing you can do if you've got a really tight bend in a toe quarter, you can cut notches where the cuff starts to bunch up, where you're trying to make that corner. That'll make it easier to bend the cuff to the shape of your foot. And then you go into the press. You're just lightly pressing everything together. And we're just going to trim off our final heel checks. Use another hoof knife there. You can also use a towing knife, and we're going to mark. So now we're going to place some reinforcements in our cuff. This is all personal preference. We like to use self-tapping screws. You can also use copper rivets. You'll see me doing both here. The pilot hole for both of those is a 532 drill bit. Place them roughly at the toe, at least at the toe and the heel quarter. You can also throw one in the middle of the shoe. Drive those down until they start to suck the cuff down a little bit. That way they're not sticking up. Once you've got all that driven, you can then go back over to the grinder and knock the ends off of the screws. Here we're just doing some final cleanup, and one of the last things you can do, you can take your tracings. That's the tracing of the horse's foot, and drop them back into your finished shoe and check the fit before you head back out to the horse. And there's your Series 2s finished.